I'm sure we have. Brother Carl, how does the current rumblings, the discord that is now coming out of Syria, and we're getting more and more, and the Middle East also, how does all this line up with the potential Bible prophecy, and how does the book of Revelations directly connected to Turkey? And why is that important in biblical prophetic understanding?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Tell me, Brother Carl, I've lost track of the clock. About how much time do I have, and I'll know how to tailor my answer to that.
Well, you got about a day and a half.
Okay, good. Day and a half. That's wonderful. Okay.
You got a good 5 minutes, and maybe a little more if you need it.
Oh, okay. Well, here's the thing, Brother Carl. First of all, look, I say this all the time. I just said it a moment ago, so let me just repeat. I do not set dates. I do not walk around wringing my hands saying, oh my gosh, the end of the world is here. I do not claim that we are the generation that will see the coming of the Lord. Now, I hope we are, because the coming of the Lord means, oh my gosh, finally this wickedness is gone, and Jesus Christ will rule and reign, and those that know him will rule and reign with him. So I pray we're that generation, but even if we're not, we are here as ambassadors for Jesus Christ. But in the midst of that, I do understand, Brother Carl, that we are living in very prophetic times. I mean, we are the generation to see the return of Israel. We are the generation to see the recapturing of Jerusalem in 1967. We are the generation to see the 70th year of Israel's birthday, and that number 70 is important, in the year 2018, coming up in just a few weeks. We are the generation to see Jerusalem named as the U.S. Embassy location and now the legal capital of Israel. Jerusalem has not been the official capital of Israel for 2,700 years. Yet in just a few weeks, we will see it happen. I mean, how much more prophetic can you get than that? Plus, you've got this whole meltdown of the Middle East that started in 2011, just 7 years ago. Again, the number 7's an important biblical number. Just 7 years ago, 2011, the meltdown of the Middle East, which caused Syria to collapse into this irrecoverable, it looks like, civil war, which brought Russia to the Middle East with its troops, which brought China to the Middle East with its troops, which put Russia and China together, and Russia and Iran together, and China and North Korea together. You got all that happening. Then you have Turkey under President Erdogan collapsing into this Islamic caliphate with all of his wickedness and evil and his hatred for Israel. So you got Syria that hates Israel, Turkey that hates Israel, Iran that hates Israel. Israel's surrounded by these haters, and all of those guys are connected to Russia and China. And so how can this not be prophetic? Because Ezekiel 38 and 39 talks about this alignment of nations that will come in the last days. The nations I'm just naming, most of them are named in that passage, either by exact names or by tribal names. You've got Isaiah 17 that talks about the collapse and the destruction of Syria in the last days. And then to answer the question about Turkey and Revelation, you've got Ezekiel 38 saying that when the attack does come against Israel, it's going to come from the north. Well, if you draw a line from Jerusalem all the way straight north to the North Pole, it intersects with Ankara, Turkey. That's the capital of Turkey, where President Erdogan is the president, where he's trying to get this Islamic caliphate. He wants to attack Israel. Just in December 2017, he met with member Islamic nations from all over the region, and they literally sat down and drew a map and planned how they could attack Israel. That just happened a few months ago. So Revelation lines up with Turkey like this, Brother Carl. You asked me the question. That's a brilliant question. Here's the answer. Revelation was written to the 7 churches of Asia Minor. Now, Bible students know that. That's what it says in the book of Revelation. Asia Minor is the old name for what we now call Turkey. So the book of Revelation about end-time happenings was written first to Turkey, to the churches in Turkey. And then it names the churches. There are 7 of them. If you look on a map, you discover that they're in kind of rough circle, right there, about not in the dead middle of Turkey, but kind of in the middle, coming close to the coast of the Mediterranean in Turkey. and the 7 letters to the 7 churches written to the churches in Turkey. Meaning, I think that means that somehow Turkey's going to be connected to this explosion in the Middle East in the last days that will eventually come against Israel. And since the Bible says the attack will come from the north, and due north of Israel is Ankara, Turkey, and just a few months ago, the president of Turkey was meeting with the Islamic nations to plan an attack on Israel. Again, how much more prophetic can you be than this? On top of all of that, and I think I've pointed this out on your show before, in those 7 letters, one of the letters is to the church at Pergamum. And Jesus says to that church, I know where you live. You live where Satan has his throne on earth. And he says that twice to the church at Pergamum. Now, you got to stop and think about this, Brother Carl. So the book of Revelation, which was given first to the churches in Turkey. Now, of course, it's meant to go to the whole world, and it's meant to be relevant to all the churches, especially in the last days. But it starts in Turkey. It's centered in Turkey. And one of those areas Jesus identifies as the earthly headquarters of Satan. And now we know that this attack that's coming against Israel in the last days is Satan's desire and his dream. And now we know that Erdogan himself has just met with all of these nations, drawing up maps and battle plans. Their battle plan was written up in a major Turkish publication that's published out of Constantinople area. I forgot what it's called now in the modern day terms, but also out of Ankara, and so. And they published a map showing how they could surround Israel. And not only that, but they said that if they did this, if they got all their armies together, they would have the largest standing army in the world. They would have 5 million soldiers, all kinds of nuclear arsenals, plus if they hooked up with Russia and China. I mean, they made these plans just a few months ago. Now, I don't know if they'll carry them out in our lifetime. I don't know if they were just blustering and talking, but we're the first generation to see these nations meet like this and make these kinds of plans against a returned Israel. And all of it's in the Bible, brother. Nowhere else. It's not in the Quran. It's not in the teachings of Buddha. It's not in the astrology charts. It's not in the teachings of Hinduism. It's not in the books of Nostradamus, but it is in the Bible. And we're watching these things, at least in the beginning stages. So that's my quick explanation of what we're watching unfold now in Syria, with President Trump saying he's going to send missiles in, Russia saying he's going to shoot them down. Of course, Iran is continually calling for Israel's destruction. Israel is saying they're going to launch attacks against Iran. They're not going to allow Iran to launch missiles from Syria, yet they're trying to do that. Turkey is meeting with the Muslim nations, wanting to destroy Israel. Again, I don't know how much more prophetic it can get. Now, I'm not wringing my hands. I'm not setting dates. I'm just trying to wake the church up to the times we're living in and how it's all connected. And everything we're watching happen is literally recorded in the scriptures, that these kinds of things would come together in the days before the return of the Lord. So, hey, the rapture might be on April 23rd, brother, but it's not because David Meade says so, and it's not because he misinterpreted Revelation 12 to have something to do with a rapture date. All I'm saying is we're living in very biblical times, very prophetic times. But hey, to me, it's exciting. I'm honored that the Lord would trust you and me and your audience and God's believers and the church with these days, Brother Carl.
Yes, sir. Well, I want to thank you for a wonderful commentary this afternoon, and I agree with you, and you're just a wonderful, wonderful friend, and I can't ever tell you how much you're appreciated, how much we revere you here in this area. And so I'll be in touch with you, very, very shortly.
Thank you so much. God bless you, Brother Carl Lamb, and all the great people in the WTSB audience.
The Satanists wanted to install their own tribute, a pagan idol, on the Capitol grounds, right next to the Ten Commandments.
Billions around the planet are witnessing a world in the grasp of sadistic spiritual darkness. This unholy alliance has infected our governments, our religious institutions, and our societies. The world appears to be unraveling. But can the evil behind these dark supernatural forces be defeated? Is everything playing out just as the Bible predicted it will in the final days? At last, you can know the answers to mankind's most urgent questions and learn your destiny among today's events in the new, unprecedented work taking the prophecy world by storm. Gods and Thrones, Nakash, Forgotten Prophecy, and the Return of the Elohim by best-selling author, former decorated law enforcement officer, and senior pastor Carl Gallups. This changes everything. Available now wherever fine books are sold.